भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि। सर्वं ब्रह्म उपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोद। निराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मेस्तु। तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
We'll chant Kenopanishad Part 2.
यदि मन्यसे सुवेदेति दभ्रमेवापि नूनं त्वं वेत्थ ब्रह्मणो रूपम्। यदस्य त्वं यदस्य देवेष्वथनुमीमांस्यमेव ते मन्ये विदितम्। नाहं मन्ये सुवेदेति नो न वेदेति वेद च। यो नस्तद्वेद तद्वेद नो न वेदेति वेद च। यस्यामतं तस्य मतं मतं यस्य न वेद सः। अविज्ञातं विजानतां विज्ञातमविजानताम्। प्रतिबोधविदितं मतममृतत्वं हि विन्दते। आत्मना विन्दते वीर्यं विद्यया विन्दतेऽमृतम्। इह चेदवेदीदथ सत्यमस्ति न चेदिहा वेदीन्महती विनष्टिः। भूतेषु भूतेषु विचित्य धीराः प्रेत्यास्माल्लोकादमृता भवन्ति।
Mantra 2 gives the experience of realization, and in Mantra 3 the Guru confirms the experience of the disciple, but in a language which is totally contradictory to what has been said by the Shishya. The language of contradiction is commonly used in Shastras to convey subtler points. We will see that in future also. Mantra 4 that we chanted now gives a brilliant path to reach the Supreme, which has been touched upon before, but it is elaborated here. One of the most powerful mantras here in part 2. Pratibodha viditam matam amrutatvam hi vindate. Atmana vindate viryam vidyaya vindate amrutam. Indeed, one attains immortality by awareing the consciousness through every experience. Through one's self, one attains power. Through knowledge, one attains immortality. Mark this verse. You will get a similar verse in Ishavasya Upanishad, Mantra 11 and Mantra 14. It's a parallel there. Pratibodha viditam matam, awareing through every state of consciousness. Indeed, one attains immortality. Immortality refers to the changeless state of beyond birth and death. Mortality means going through the cycle of birth and death. Birth and death represents change. We have seen the examples of a day being maintained through constant birth and death of morning, afternoon, evening and night So there is a birth of afternoon and there is a death of morning. There is a birth of evening and death of noon. Like that, there is a constant birth and death. This is the law of nature. So, the world, the mind, every aspect of this world is constantly subject to change. If one has to go beyond this cycle of birth and death, which is of change, one has to become changeless, then one has to catch hold of that which is changeless. When we are associating ourselves with a changing phenomenon, there is every chance that when there is a sudden change outside, if we are not stable, that change is going to affect us and we are also going to fall. See, there is a dance form which most of you know in North India also. In Gujarat they played during Dandiya that they catch hold of the hands like this and they come around in circle. It's a very fast swirling motion. And of course there's some practice to it. Both of them must go in the same frequency, and both of their legs will be as though touching, but they must not trip and fall. And the dress that they will be wearing is also a flowing type, so that should also not affect. And if you are expert in that, both of them do like that, and it's a very nice thing. So in order to first practice that motion, children are asked, or not asked, you can say independently also. Children, what they do is they catch hold of a small pillar or a small post, they hold like this and they come around that. The difference between these two is, in the first case both are moving, constantly moving, so they are susceptible to fall. Of course we are not talking about experts who are in that, otherwise we are susceptible to fall where two entities are moving, changing. But in the other case, there is no chance for the child to fall because it is holding on to something which is fixed. The pillar is fixed. So in our experience, the world and the mind are the two factors. The world is also subject to constant change and the mind is also subject to constant change. Unless otherwise both the frequencies meet at some point of time, we are not stable. And that in our day-to-day experience, we know there is very less chance or very temporary phenomenon it is. That is why when there is a seasonal change, when there is a change of political climate, when there is a change of stock market, when there is a change of the mood of other friend or other related person, constantly these fluctuations affect us. Because there is a change outside, there is a change inside also, because the mind is also subject to constant movement, constant change. The moment it is somewhat dependent on an external factor for its stability, it is never going to be stable, because constant change is the law of nature. Therefore, in Gita also it comes, the mind must catch hold of something which is changeless. Having caught hold of that, if the mind is going on a swirling motion also, it will not lose its core stability. In fact, this mantra gives a formula for that. So unless otherwise the mind catches hold of something stable, it can never be stable by itself. And this changes that we are talking about, in the practical sense of the term, it is also gradual. When a man identifies with the grossest personality, the physical personality and the senses, the vicissitudes and the changes that he goes through is maximum. See, imagine a wheel that is in motion, like the pottery wheel that they keep, and it is in constant motion. The axle or the middle of the center of that wheel is constant and the wheel is moving around it. Imagine a ant or a fly that is sitting in the wheel, or even a small insect that is sitting on the wheel. As the wheel is going through constant motion, this goes through a chakkar. It feels giddy. Where does it feel the maximum giddiness is when it sits on the very extreme of the wheel. So the extreme of the wheel goes through faster motion and it is going through a bigger circumference. Imagine in and through that motion, slowly that insect or the rodent is able to move towards the center of the wheel. As it is moving towards the center of the wheel also, it will get affected by the motion, but as it comes closer and closer to the center, the stability factor becomes little more pronounced, but still it is subject to change, it is subject to fall. Till such time it reaches the very core of the center where it is sitting on the axle, let us say, it is unmoving. It is looking at all the movement around it, exactly like that. Till we reach the core or center of our personality, which is the changeless substratum, we will be going through the motion of ups and downs in life, and it will be felt maximum when our identification is with the farthest point, which is in identification with our body, which is our senses. So as long as a person is a gross sensualist and materialist, where his stability factor is dependent on various things with the external world, which is constantly going to change, he is going to be very unstable, he is susceptible to fall, he is susceptible to be affected at each and every moment of his experience. The difference between an extroverted person and introverted person is, the term extroversion and introversion is based on mind's direction turned outward or inward. Extrovert means turned outside, introvert means turned inside. What is this outside and inside? In general term, you can say when you open your eyes, what you see is outside. When you close your eyes, what you see is inside. Okay, so that means the focus of attention goes from the world to something inside. Something inside means, what is my thoughts, who am I, what is that I am doing, this type of thoughts. When it preoccupies, irrespective of whichever position you are, the direction changes, he begins to get into deeper recesses of his personality. That also in stages. He will be first doing subjectively physical things, then emotional personality that he identifies with, then he goes to intellectual personality, then he goes into spiritual personality. So the identification from the body to the mind to the gross intellect to the subtle intellect, slowly it goes. As he goes inside further and further, he is little bit gaining stability, more and more he gains, till he reaches the core of his personality, which is the Atman. So all this while, what formula really works is that as you think, so you become. The person, as long as he thinks is the gross physical personality, becomes a materialist or a sensualist. It is not how much material possessions a person possesses. It is not how much amidst sensual enjoyments that he is there that will determine a materialist or a sensualist. You can go through in the chapter 3 of Governing Business Relationship. Swamiji is defining the layers of personality like this. A person can be a beggar also with having no possessions, yet he can be extreme materialist. A person can be with opulence and amidst riches also, he need not be a materialist. I am not saying it is automatic, but need not be a materialist. Where is his thoughts? So as long as the thoughts are more on material objects, always thinking of money and what money can buy, etc. These are the thoughts that is preoccupying that person. A person may not have, but constantly craving for it. That person is a material person. It is nothing to do with whether he is a low class or a middle class or high class in terms of his financial status. Similarly, a sensual person is constantly in the lookout for sensual enjoyment. If he is not able to procure it, he is mentally lingering over it, etc. It is his, where is his thought flow? Bhajagovidam, he says, Yogaratova, Bhogaratova, Sangaratova, Sangavihinaha. Yoga here means spiritual practices, Bhoga means sensual enjoyments. So, Yogaratova, Bhogaratova. You can be amidst spiritual practice, you can be amidst enjoyments. Sangaratova, Sangavihinaha. You can be amidst company, you can be alone, without Sangha. But Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam Nandati Nandati Nandatyeva. Whose mind is reveling in Brahman, he alone is happy. So it really does not matter where you are, where your thoughts are, that determines you. So therefore, first he is a sensualist or a materialist as long as his identification is with his senses, his material. And that is where most of the people fall into. In other words, he believe himself to be the body, and the satisfaction of his body sort of is the main aim or the main purpose for which he is there. So a good portion of this person's identification is with his material body. The moment he is able to identify himself with his emotional personality, that is when he is able to rise above, little bit above the body consciousness. Now wherever his emotions are circling, that is his identification. He becomes a emotional personality. So his thoughts are centered around his mind, and therefore whatever he sees in the world will be the projection of his mind's liking and disliking only. So he is a emotional personality. When he goes deeper into his personality, when he is identifying with ideologies, thoughts, ideas, he becomes an intellectual personality. He views the world only from that angle. He may not be enamored by the play of the senses and other things. That does not touch him. He is not so much tempted by it, but he operates at a different level. And all this you have to remember, as he travels this path inside also, actually his joy becomes subtler. A person who derives joy from sense objects, a person who derives joy from physical contacts, no doubt derives a certain amount of joy. That is because of his desire getting satisfied, he gets a certain amount of joy. But the emotional joys that he gains when he is an emotional personality is definitely sweeter, it's subtler. We give this common example as to a person who can eat the chocolate himself, but later when he has a child, he does not eat the chocolate. Though he likes it, he gives it to the child. This is a common phenomenon. Question is, why does he derive extra enjoyment there? What is the subtler joy there? Why is emotional joy?
Sharing.
Why?
Identifies.
Identifies with child. Okay. So he is operating at an emotional level. Here it's a physical joy which is touching through the senses, there at an emotional level. So why is it giving more joy? It is closer, right? So you will find that as you travel inside, you are getting closer. In fact, all the joys that we enjoy in the world are nothing but reflection of the self. The reflection is much more here as you go closer. Just as in the planetary movement around the sun, as you go towards the sun, the heat you feel from those planets will be obviously more. Mercury is the closest, it will be much hotter. Sun is that which gives light to all the planets. They don't have anything of their own. But as you get closer and closer to the sun, these will shine much more. These planets, compared to let us say Neptune or Uranus, Earth and Venus and Mercury, they are all closer to the sun. So it is the Atma's pleasure only at every stage we understand, but it gets reflected and we have a vicarious enjoyment through them. So physical pleasure, subtler than that is the emotional pleasure, subtler than that is the intellectual ideas and ideologies, where you get a person who works for an ideal or a cause and he is doing certain things at the intellectual level. He is able to rise above emotions and feel certain amount of complete absorption in it. That is because he is operating at the level which is subtler than the emotions. Going along the same line, we can say those who have identified with the self, which is the deepest core of the personality, they will obviously be more joyful. This is the traveling. Now, the same principle applies that as you think of the self, you also become the self. As you think of the material things more, you become a materialist. As you think of emotions more, you become an emotional personality. Then you become intellectual personality. So where your thought focus is more, where your bulk of thoughts operate, that is what you are essentially identified with. So if you are able to apply that formula with reference to the self, you become the self. Now, pratibodha viditam matam amritatvam. Pratibodha viditam means awareing the self through each and every experience. Actually, each and every experience of ours is a combination of spirit and matter. Only human being has got a chance to focus his attention either upon the matter or upon the spirit. No other creature has got this facility, this chance. So therefore, in and through all the experience, you try to think in terms of really, as he has given before, what makes you go through that experience. In and through that awareness, it is extremely difficult, but by practice it can be done. See, one Mahatma was asked as to where to spot God. He said, look between your two thoughts. But how to really look between the two thoughts? It's very tough. But the fact is, between two thoughts, actually you are hitting the consciousness. Between two frames of a moving film, actually you see a blank screen, but practically it is not there. It is moving so fast that you see, and that movement has made also you get involved in the movie. In that process, we actually forget that there is a screen itself. Where is the question of even trying to see the screen? First of all, there is the existence of screen itself is not. But somebody says, no, there is a screen behind it. In and through this movie, you try to spot that screen. Now, if you are able to arrest the... now, it is not possible to arrest something on the screen. The arresting has to be done at the level of the film. If you are able to slow the film and then stop the film and put off the film, only then the screen is going to be visible. But we can understand from this example that between two frames actually there is a screen, but it is constant motion is that we are not really able to see it. Exactly like that, you draw this x-axis. That diagram is given later in the book because the same thought comes later in a different context. You draw x-axis and there is a curve that goes up and down. So one is the highs and lows of the mind all through this experience. This x-axis represents the consciousness. So this is our experiences. There is a crest and trough, high and low of various experiences. But between every experiences, you are actually hitting the consciousness here. So pratibodha viditam, each and every experience you need to aware the self. Therefore, what this mantra really says is, prayer is not a part-time pastime. It is a full-time awareness. One cannot just have connection with the spirit in a class like this once a week or 5 minutes of prayer every day that you do or whatever it is. It is not these are just practices or reminders, you can say. These practices and reminders must make us aware of the self in and through each and every experience. Therefore, the Guru is actually recommending what is known as a open eye meditation. In order to finally realize the self, where we need to close eyes and constantly think of the self, which is meditation, one needs to be aware of the self in and through all experience, which is open eye meditation. Open eye meditation is to aware the self or remember the self, use the experiences of the world to remember the self without getting involved in the world. It is very tough to practice. Let us be clear on that. It is like, see, suppose most of you might drive a car here. When you started learning driving the car, there was a person who was sitting next to you and giving instructions as to how to drive the car. So there are various simultaneous operations that are involved, even to move the vehicle, turn the vehicle, etc. There is you need to release the clutch first of all properly, change the gear and then press the accelerator simultaneously, but have the eye on the road. That is the main thing. And then you need to operate the indicator. These are all functions of the car. So when he says something, the immediate tendency is to turn. What? No, don't turn here. What? You have to always have the eye on the road only. That's why he says, don't turn here, turn there. Always have, just listen to what I say, he says. It is very difficult. So, because we are not trained, but slowly by training, what you do, you not only now drive the car, indicators and other things become automatic. You listen to music, you drink Pepsi or something while driving, And there are people who take off their hands. I'm not talking about a cruise control car, even normal hands, they take off, do something else, turn back and speak, all that is there. But in and through, there is a constant awareness of the main function, which is to be aware of the road and make the driving going. All other things are done. Talking is done, phone you speak, everything you do. But you don't lose sight of, it's not recommended, but there are persons who do it like that. But how is this possible? This is possible by practice. This is possible by keeping a constant awareness fixed first, then all other things becomes easier. So, open eye meditation is something like that. It is very difficult. You think of the world means you forget the God. You think of the God means you forget the world. That's how it will work. It can never work sort of simultaneously. How it can work simultaneously? So, it is a question of where the focus is. See, when we say that you do the work in the office, you must concentrate in the work, obviously. So, how can a person have a simultaneous concentration in two aspects? It is not possible. But what it means is, there is a constant focus that is kept at the background from where the Marinus compass doesn't deviate here or there. At the same time, you are able to perform the functions in the foreground without affectation. This is the technique. So, the focus is something like this. You keep a finger in front of you and focus on the finger. The other things are there, but it goes out of the sight. It is blurred. And when I am seeing that, which is when I see the person sitting here, I am focused there, this finger becomes blurred. I see 2 or 3 fingers, like it comes in a blurred way. So it is very clear that where you focus, that is becoming fixed and other thing becomes blurred. When I focus on the background becomes fixed and the finger becomes blurred. Exactly like that, in the life, where the focus is upon the self, the world becomes blurred. Where the focus is upon the world, the self becomes blurred. This is the vision that he is talking about here. The example of classical musicians is constantly quoted and it is given in the book also. I remember this Upanishad commentary was written in I think 98 or 99 the book came out. When we did Kenopanishad, the commentary of Kenopanishad was not ready. But when we did Ishavasya Upanishad in the course, we have 4 chapters of Gita in between. In academy we do, and then it starts with the poems. Now you have Fall of the Human Intellect, poems, Fall of the Human Intellect, Vedanta treatise, Bhajagovindam, Atma Bodha, Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita 4 chapters. After 4th chapter, Kenopanishad comes. Then 5, 6, 7, 8 chapters, Ishavasya Upanishad comes. By the time we did the Ishavasya Upanishad, the prototype of the commentary was given to us with printouts. Book had not come for us to follow. So in our previous set and all, there was no commentary. Afterwards, the book came. So in some context, one day Swamiji was writing the commentary on this 4th verse, 4th mantra of part 2. That morning there was some class, I don't know what chapter. In the context, he brought in this mantra and he said, never will I comment on this mantra again. It was so difficult. See, to comment on Anya Dev, you will find that the commentary of this verse is almost 3 pages, equivalent to the Anya Devatat Vidita Tato, that mantra. That mantra is the crux of the Upanishad, and that is the most powerful and subtle mantra. But he says it is so difficult to comment on a topic like open eye meditation and this objectivity. Objectivity is what this mantra is talking about. So in the example, he had to bring in that Shruti of the classical musician. Those who learn song first are the initial stages, but when they get practiced and they become experts, you will find that they either now keep a electronic Shruti or a Tanpura type of a thing which is there in the background. Some person is sitting there and doing that constantly. But this person who is the main artist, having attuned to that Shruti, is actually singing a variety of songs. There is a lot of ragas and talas and various alap and all he does, various journey he goes through. But in and through, there is a constant fixation to that. If That is why a trained musician, for him, before the song, he maintains that Shruti first, then only he starts singing. Once that attunement is there, once that, and even a slight disturbance in that, he will be able to catch. Others who maybe normal audience will not know, but for him it is a disturbance and it's a main disturbance. So the Shruti's attunement is of utmost important, and that is an insignificant thing as far as we are concerned, because we don't even hear that noise. All that we hear is a violin or a tabla or a mridangam and other things that it is there, that goes along with the song. But all these are accompanying to the song, but there is a background Shruti to the song. The background Shruti is something which is constant. Like that, if your subtle intellect is able to attune to that Shruti at the background, at the back of your personality, and in the foreground you go through the various motions and activities of the world, you will still not move away from the center of yourself, come what may. This type of a constant awareness when you maintain through, then that thing happens. Pratibodha viditam matam amritatvam. In each and every experience, you will be able to aware that consciousness. You will be able to, as though, worship God through each and every activity. Your karma becomes worship. Your bhakti becomes worship. Your jnana becomes worship. Your yoga becomes worship. Each and everything becomes a worship. So thus we will be able to convert our activities into a full-time awareness of truth. In the second line he says, Atmana vindate viryam vidyaya vindate amritam. Atmana, by oneself, viryam, power he gains. Vidyaya, by knowledge he gains immortality. The practice that has been said to aware the self in and through all the experiences is actually the essence of objectivity. It is the essence of dispassionate passion. A person who is wanting to achieve or be achiever in the world in terms of success, in terms of prosperity, whatever he wants to achieve in this world, please note that even for that you need to practice objectivity. A sort of a dispassion has to be there, and you can see it even unconsciously coming out in the lives of those who have achieved in the world something or the other. Swami Ramtirtha gives this as a picture. He says, I really do not know how to explain, you have to only picturize that. He says, there is a grand army that is marching and Napoleon is standing there in the, a small mount, and the army is marching, and he suddenly says, halt. One man shouts, halt. The entire army stops. He says, where does he get that power? It is not that he is a king, he is the leader, he is the commander. So therefore, carefully analyze that picture, that a person is able to say halt and everything comes to a halt. From where does that sound, where does that power come? He is actually risen above himself and he thinks himself to be something. He is not somebody who is, I am a person with certain decibel of voice, how will I make this army stop? He is never into that thought process or that thought mode itself. He is thinking or he is feeling himself to be the great commander at whose control everything is there. So he has actually risen above his small personality to put himself as a stature. In fact, this is some sort of a dispassion with reference to his small personality. From that personality level, from that level of identification, when he says shouts halt, that means there is a halt. It will happen. So therefore, like this picture, you imagine, we as individuals have our thought process to think ourselves to be a useless small personality having a small body, mind and intellect and pertaining to certain thoughts. I am a small family man doing something. This sort of a circle that our thoughts can go through. Or you can raise your thought to think very high of yourself. When I say it's not an ego that we are talking about, I am talking about the same formula that as you think so you become. Swami Ramtirtha says it is as easy to be great as to be small in terms of how you identify your thoughts flow with. So by the thought flow, if you are able to identify yourself as a higher personality, as a superior personality, then the Bhagavad Gita verse that Kshipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati. All the things in the world that are great achievements, he says Kshipram. Kshipram means like this. Like this means immediately you can get it. By doing the right type of actions and sacrifices, you will be able to achieve whatever you want to achieve in this world. A person is having energy to dig a mine. In this side is the coal mine, this side is the gold mine. If he digs here all days along, he will get certain amount of coal. Same effort he puts here, he will gain that amount of gold. So where is your focus? What is your choice? That is with you. So, Uddaret Atmanatmanam, same word Atmana, Krishna uses in chapter 6 verse 5 is same thing. Let man raise himself by himself. You have the ability to raise yourself, you have the ability to lower yourself. The self is your friend, the self is your enemy. The self there used is the small self. Therefore, even as an individual, where you peg your thought process is of utmost importance. Even if you want to achieve something in the world, you need to have a sense of dispassion. Forget about the end result. Look at the process of even how Napoleon, Hitler, or even those people who achieved certain things in the short term. They conquered territories, they became, emperors and everything. How is it that they were able to do? They were able to set aside everything and keep themselves aloft at a certain goal. It could be a selfish goal, whatever it is, but they were able to keep something which is beyond themselves that they were focused to achieve. That is the power that gives them to achieve whatever they want to achieve. So here is a formula given which we can use practically. Our mind really craves for selfish desires. We crave for money, we crave for power, we crave for and in this craving we actually put ourselves in a beggar position. Beggar is somebody who craves, who wants, who yearns, who looks forward to, as though somebody will grant to him. So the moment the mind is in a craving mode, we are actually in a very receiving mode. We are in the mode of very putting ourselves in a poor position. Rather, Vedanta says put yourself in a commanding position with a higher ideal or intellect. When the focus of attention is on the mind, it is called as avarice, greed, yearning, craving. When it comes to intellect, you call it positively a fixation of an aim or an ambition or a goal. So our dispassion starts from shifting our focus from the mind's craving, greed and avarice, because once you let that mind go, it will ask for more, it will be craving. In this process, what happens is that you are incapacitated to act. Your actions become faulty. You will not really achieve what you said to achieve, or rather, you will put in so much effort to produce this much. This is what will happen when you operate from the level of a loser, a person who is like a beggar. On the other hand, put yourself in a leadership mode, a commanding mode. How it is possible? Instead of on the receiving mode, now you become in a giving mode. So, a person, let us say, aims for money, etc., promotion and various things that he craves for. Instead, let him have a fixation in terms of, even selfishly, I must become the managing director of this company. That becomes a fixation. That becomes a goal. So you just focus on that, then you act like a managing director, you will achieve that state. In the process, what all you achieve? You achieve money also. You achieve power. You achieve status. So you can keep an aim or ambition in line of what you want to achieve, which is a fixation. And of course, selfish goals will not sustain themselves for long. In the long run, you have to keep some goal, an inspiration, based on an inspiration, which is towards a cause. So a person who is starting an industry, it is not merely for just profit or something. His expansion and other thing is for a cause of the nation. Like that, he is able to picturize himself and position himself in a better way. As he is setting to achieve that, the law again functions. Anything that you aspire to go towards the higher, the lower is taken care of. That is again a law. So whatever it is required at a lower level, it will be automatically be taken care of. So here is a formula of dispassionate passion that you can use to achieve certain things in the world itself. So if you are using that energy to achieve certain things in the world, he says, Atmana Vindate Viryam. If you are able to achieve power in the world, it is by the dispassionate use of yourself only. But it is still a worldly achievement. Then you have to go to the next step. He says, Vidyaya Vindate Amritam. All this is still worldly achievement. No doubt it is in the path. No, it's in the path that you go. But beyond a point, you think each and everything that you achieve in the world, you are given the 7 worlds to rule also, it is still world. Then what? Then your fixation goes to something beyond. That is Vidyaya. That is the word Vidyaya here refers to the knowledge of the self. By knowledge of the self, you achieve the supreme most. That supreme most is the self by which you become immortal. In other words, immortality of the world, which is a relative immortality, can be achieved through your karma by fixing a higher ideal or a goal and working towards it. But the real immortality, which is the changeless position of supreme self realization, that can be achieved only through knowledge of the self, nothing else. So by the knowledge of waking state, you become completely woken up. Like that, by the knowledge of the self, you become absolutely immortal. Now the mantra says, the choice is yours. You use as you want to use. But here obviously is referring to the highest only. Indeed, one attains immortality by awareing the consciousness through every experience. Through oneself, one attains power. Through knowledge, one attains immortality. Ultimately, he becomes the changeless reality. So the choice is yours. The message of the verse is that identify yourself with the self in and through all transactions. That is the crux. The message of the verse is to identify yourself, never waver away from the center of your personality. This is a chance that is given to us only, which is reiterated in the most powerful or one of the most powerful verses or words used in the more powerful mantra, which is the next mantra. Yes, sir.
So the word Amritama has been used, and I guess it is again of you are getting yourself, which I assume also means merging with Brahman.
That's right.
So then why is the word Amritam used? Because Brahman is beyond mortal and immortality. So there is no birth, so there cannot be any death. So why is the word Amritam used?
Mortality is for the individual. Birth and death is for the individual. From the individual point of view, Brahman is Amritam. It is immortal. No birth, no death. So individual reaches Brahman. That's why it is as far as the individual is concerned, he crosses the path and reaches the goal of Amritam. Brahman is immortal. From our angle, if you see, individual is having birth and death. So he is mortal. The state of self-realization is immortality. It remains always Brahman.
But then Brahman is beyond mortal and immortality. Is it not?
No. When you are talking about the individual, Brahman is immortal. Brahman is immortal. Yeah, in terms of individual, it is immortal.
Sir, second question, sir, I guess here knowledge again is being used as Gyan.
Which knowledge? Vidyaya.
Yeah,
Not Jnana Yoga. It's not Jnana Yoga. It is knowledge of the self. It is the absolute knowledge.
You can't say Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga and Jnana. That is
No, that is not the context in the word using. That is why he says Atmana Vindate Viryam. All that practices in the world where you get power in the world. Atmana Vindate Viryam. But Vidyaya Vindate Amritam. That Vidyaya is knowledge of the self only. Not the practice of. Not the practice.
So how can we differentiate between knowledge of the self and knowledge and Jnana?
Jnana Yoga is what we practice here by the study of the Shastras, reflecting, etc. But the actual waking up, that particular knowledge that you gain, that is called as knowledge of the self. That is not a product or a practice or anything. It is just a waking up. It is just an awareness. By that you gain immortality.
So here it appears that the both realization as well as immortality are almost one in the same format. Is there any place in
Realization and immortality are the same.
any other place in Shastra where they are differentiated or they are posed in a similar fashion?
No, realization and immortality, they will not pose it differently. Realization is becoming immortal. It is becoming immortal. In Ishavasya, he is talking about a relative immortality and absolute immortality, where he says you will cross death through avidya and you attain immortality through vidya. There the word used are avidya and vidya, where you cross death, he says, and that's a very beautiful way. And of course, I said there is a little parallel, but it's a deeper meaning there. Yes, sir.
There are two questions. One is in this example of mind and intellect, where we are differentiating between greed and aim goal. With the best of intentions, you look at doing something, you have an aim and a goal, and when you face challenges, then that fear comes, or you can face it can convert to fear. That means that your intellect you have given up your
Challenge cannot convert it into fear. Fear comes out of your selfish motive in the process.
So then basically you are shifting from the intellect to the mind.
Mind. Wherever there is a mind operating, it operates within the small self. Then there is a fear factor.
So then this shifting between the intellect and the mind, that will depend upon the strength of your intellect.
Yes, sir, obviously.
It will depend upon how you are strengthening your intellect.
Correct. Therefore, the study and reflection is what is recommended to strengthen the intellect. With the help of that, you are able to fix something. So, if a person is able to have a fixation, so even in the world, if a person wants to achieve something, there has to be a fixation. There has to be a thought process which is centered around that focus. That person becomes dispassionate towards, let us say, other things that normally other persons, he will not go for every Eden Gardens match, or he will not do certain things which others are thinking as enjoyment, weekends, vacation. He is constantly focused on that. To that extent, when he becomes dispassionate about other things, he becomes an achiever in what he has set to achieve. In that sense, dispassionate passion can be taken as a worldly achievement also. Therefore, objectivity or being a Sakshi is both a path, process, as well as the goal. The absolute goal is being absolute Sakshi, which is the supreme state of the self. But in and through also, if we are able to little bit withdraw ourselves, our involvement in the normal course, and you are able to view it objectively, to that extent you become successful in the worldly thing.
This example that you have given about hot waves and the x-axis being the self, and the explanation in mantra 3, Swamiji says.
Sorry, mantra 3 of?
Mantra 3 of the chapter 2, part 2, sorry. In the last para explanation, he is talking about that moment of ecstasy. He is calling that also limited.
No, but why are you bringing mantra 3 here? We are talking about mantra 4, and this diagram comes later in. Don't connect.
Okay, don't connect.
And don't connect that to here. This is mantra 4 is different. Mantra 3 is talking about a absolute statement, a declaration, which is confirming the disciples' experience in a opposite way, in a contradictory way, he is saying. So that mantra should not be mixed. This is absolutely a extreme path that is given, and by which how you attain the goal. That is the import of this mantra. So never bring the mantra 3's commentary into 4. That has no connection. Later I said this thought will come in part 4. There he is going to say a similar thing, where actually the diagram itself is given there, I think, if I am not mistaken. Page number 67 of the old book, you will find this thing is the experience and consciousness.
Okay, I like to disassociate this from the question that I have. The question is, Swamiji is saying that if you are studying and you are introspecting, and sometimes you get a little ecstatic, at our level you can't say we know, but you are getting that feeling of, a higher feeling, let us say, can that be related to that sort of?
It is, he has very clearly said in the mantra one, it is a form of Brahman. That what you are experiencing through, which is much above or your worldly experiences, it is something that you go through a divine ecstasy, all that has nothing to do with the reality. It is a Dabrameva Pinunam, you know only this much. Brahmano Rupam, he says. That's what we had explained in the last class. That is, so therefore he says, those who know that, they don't know this. Those who don't, those who know this, they don't know that. That's what he says in the previous mantra. So that is a different thing altogether.
So pure consciousness and pure knowledge, is it different thing or they are same?
Same.
Here some pure consciousness is mentioned one, and that knowledge is mentioned separately. It seems different.
No. It is by awareing you gain that vidya, knowledge. See, consciousness, awareness, knowledge, these are all words that can be interchangeably used. So by knowing the waking state, you gain awareness. You can, how else you put it? So that knowledge of waking state is the awareness of the waking state, is the consciousness of waking state. So these three are interchangeable words as far as English is concerned.
In self, one self, using consciousness, that is also the same knowledge.
It is some knowledge. Knowledge pure, therefore at the purest level, so that is why self is called as objectless awareness or objectless knowledge. So when the knowledge becomes conditioned, you call it conditioned consciousness or conditioned awareness. Otherwise, knowledge, awareness, consciousness, these are all interchangeable terms. Indeed, one attains immortality by awareing the consciousness through every experience. Through oneself, one attains power. Through knowledge, one attains immortality. We'll chant mantra 5 twice.
इह चेदवेदीदथ सत्यमस्ति न चेदिहा वेदीन्महति विनष्टिः भूतेषु भूतेषु विचित्य धीराः प्रेत्यास्माल्लोकादमृता भवन्ति इह चेदवेदीदथ सत्यमस्ति न चेदिहा वेदीन्महति विनष्टिः भूतेषु भूतेषु विचित्य धीराः प्रेत्यास्माल्लोकादमृता भवन्ति.
If that is known here, then is truth established. If not known here, it is the greatest loss. Having reflected through every element, the wise risen from the world become immortal. The second line, if you had carefully noted, it should ring a bell. Very parallel line we had just studied before. Anybody remembers? Easily you say Tattvabodha. Where in Tattvabodha?
The elements, when we did the elements in Tattvabodha, the absolute pure form of elements.
Right.
So through realization we purify our elements. And
See, here the term is, this sentence I am asking, Bhuteshu Bhuteshu Vichitya Dhira Pretyasma Loka Amrita Bhavanti. So nobody is revising the mantras after we study.
It is like that every spirit is reacting with the material world. He is calling like that.
I am asking, this sentence, do you recall anywhere?
Element.
Part 1, mantra 2. Almost verbatim same sentence come in the second. Chakshushas chakshur atimuchya dhiraha pretyasmat lokat amrita bhavanti. So here also he says pretyasmat lokat amrita bhavanti. There he says dhiraha, here also dhiraha. Dhiraha means wise people. Wise people means, dhiraha also means strong. What it means is, with a strong will, when you are able to be established in the jnana, here is strong is not the physical strength, obviously, a strength at the intellectual level. They are the real wise people. Okay, so Dhiraha, there also he says, Pre tasmat loka tamrta bhavanti. Having risen above this world, they become immortal. Here also he says, the wise, having risen above the world, they will become immortal. But there he says, Atimuchya Dhiraha. Atimuchya means, much refers to the liberation. Mukti, much and all has the same. Atimuchya means fully liberated. Having fully liberated, the wise rise above the world and attain immortality is sort of a declaration that is given in the second mantra. Here, Bhuteshu Bhuteshu Vichitya. Vichitya means reflected, thought about. Having thought about Bhuteshu Bhuteshu, every element, in every aspect, in every being, in every aspect, having reflected very well, Vichitya, wise people are able to rise above the world and attain immortality. So, the subtle difference between, the message is the same. The subtle difference is, there he is given as a declaration as to what that state and what is to be achieved. Here, a slight indication of the path. How do you gain that? That is why we always say, initially there is only declaration. Second is the explanation. Third is the path. Fourth is the advice. This is the style of the Shastras. That's why you will find next part is going to be a beautiful story. That story is again given as an explanation of the same thing only. And in fourth, he very clearly says, Adesha. Adesha means, I am giving you instructions. Instructions. So a person who is to be taught with instructions, do this, don't do this first, etc. Then he qualifies for subjective worship. Then he qualifies to be a person who can be liberated. So it is just this is one of the ways, see what we are dealing with is Upanishad. So when you get deeper into the study, it is not just merely sometimes play with words or Sanskrit or anything, but you will find certain things are giving a subtle hint or messages. One such thing is this. So that comes in the commentary also, you can read through it. So by awareing or going through the reflecting upon the elements, Bhuteshu Bhuteshu, in every element, Dhiraha, wise people, rise above the world and attain immortality. But before that he says, one of the words that you must underline here is Mahati Vinashti. This word sometimes Swami uses in the lectures. Nashti means loss, Vinashti means great loss, Mahati Vinashti means supremest of all great loss, means superlative it is. There is no way that he can express it further. So what is it? If you have realized the self here, you have lived a life of truth. If that is known here, then is truth established. If not known here, it is the greatest loss. Then having reflected through every element, the wise risen from this world become immortal. Therefore, a very, very powerful word like Mahati Vinashti, whether when you go into the grammar, whether you can construct like that and all, we don't know. But he is using it in such a powerful way to convey what is the loss that we may undergo if we have not committed ourselves to this self-realization. And to who is he addressing this? He is addressing this to the person who is committed in this path, who has understood certain things, and yet you have not achieved it. It is the supremest great loss. See, when he says that word loss, we think in terms, suppose you say, I lost some money also, I lost some pen, what else did I lose? It is not that type of a loss. He is trying to, meaning you have absolutely lost everything. If you have not committed yourself to this agenda of what the human life is given for you, you cannot measure the loss that you are undergoing. It can never be compensated with anything else that you can acquire. You can acquire great family, children, money, fame, success, power. All that really doesn't count for even an infinitesimal iota of the loss that we undergo if we do not pursue this. The word powerfully given is Mahati Vinashti. We'll conclude with the bhajans here.
Anand Govinda Radhe Gopala Jayananda Mukunda Anand Govinda Radhe Gopala Govinda Madhava Gopala Keshava Govinda Madhava Gopala Keshava Giridhari Giridhari Jaya Radhe Gopala Giridhari Giridhari Jaya Radhe Gopala Ghanshyam Shyam Shyam Jaya Jaya Radhe Gopala Ghanshyam Shyam Shyam Jaya Jaya Radhe Gopala Jayananda Mukunda Ananda Govinda Radhe Gopala Jayananda Mukunda Ananda Govinda Radhe Gopala Govinda Madhava Gopala Keshava Govinda Madhava Gopala Keshava Gopala Keshava Gopala Keshava Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti